my name is Beck and welcome to a video where I'm going to talk about books that I discovered that didn't fit my reading taste, but I ended up really enjoying them. I did a similar video that was books I thought I would love and would fit my reading taste and that I didn't end up enjoying, so this is kind of the sequel to that video in a more positive note. So without further ado, let's get into my unexpected list. I'm not quite sure if I can say that I enjoyed this book considering the subject matter, but it is A Little Life by Hanya Yangahara, and this is a book that centers 4 characters who are all in college and it follows them decades later as they age as well. And it centers discussion about mental health and it's got a lot of trigger warnings in it for very dark stuff. And so because of that reason, I don't want to say enjoyed, but I think I liked it. I'm not sure. When I finished it, I gave it a 4 stars and I didn't cry like a lot of people have, which very much surprised me, but I did feel very morose after finishing it and I took 2 or 3 days off reading because I just couldn't handle any more content effectively. So it was a lot for a book, but I think I liked it. I'm really not sure. It involves a lot of discussion, which I think is the part that I liked, but I didn't like the there is no light at the end of the tunnel kind of mood that it invoked. It was definitely not a healthy book. So if you're going to go into reading it, please be aware of that. And I would avoid reading it if you are someone struggling with mental health, because it's a book that is very grim and it has been described in the past as torture porn. And I completely understand why. These characters feed off each other and not in a healthy way. So your warning is there. I've laid it down for you. I did give it a 4 stars, but I haven't read a book like it, let's put it that way. So A Little Life, I'm surprised, has made this list. And that is the whole point of this video, so I guess I'm doing something right. The next book is a lot more cute, fluffy, and exciting, and that is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This is a male-male love interest story, and it centers US politics and the British royal family. And I didn't think that I would love it because of those themes, but I ended up adoring it. I finished it in like 2 days. I read it over the Valentine's Day weekend this year and it has become one of my favorites of this entire year. It is definitely going to be my favorites of 2021 video because I loved it so much. Alex and Henry, the 2 characters who are love interests, are just the most wholesome, adorable people ever. And I love the way that it centered queerness and the discussion around that and friendship. And it didn't involve toxic friendships. It had a lot of support in it and it was just so cute and wholesome and exciting and sexy and funny and I loved it so much. So I can't wait to reread it. I've said that before and I do mean it, but I just haven't made time to reread it yet. So if you haven't picked up Red, White, and Royal Blue, I highly recommend doing so. It has been recommended to me by several friends and all of the friends that have recommended it to me have finished it within several days or several hours. And I was like, I really hope that I do the same thing. And sure enough, I did. So it was wonderful and I loved it. That is why it is on this list as well. Up next is 1,000 Perfect Notes by C.G. Drews, and this is a young adult contemporary, and I don't like a lot of young adult contemporary just because I generally don't pick it up, so I don't know what I'm curating my list for when I read it, if that makes sense. I like very specific things in young adult contemporary, and I think this hit the right amount, which is a balance between characterization, grit, and story. And so it follows a character who has to look after his younger sister. He's also being pressured by his mother, who used to be a concert pianist. And so he's being trained by her in a very abusive manner. And so he tries to protect his little sister as much as possible, but it gets to a bit of a breaking point. He also makes a new friend, August, at school, and they become very close. And so I love how music is interwoven with family relationships, and these characters just felt very real to me when I was reading them and I could really understand their bond. So that is why I gave it a 5 stars, and I thought that I would enjoy it, and it was written by somebody who's in the Australian blogger community, which is why I picked it up in general, to support an Australian author. And after I picked it up, I was like, I'm so glad that I did, because it has not only become a book that I really enjoyed, it has become a new favourite out of 5 stars. And then we have a significantly sadder book next, and that is They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. This is a book that has a little bit of a flair of sci-fi in it, but it never explains the sci-fi. The sci-fi really just exists to start the story going. So what happens in this world is when you are about to die, you get a text message from Deathcast and you have 24 hours from that text message and then you die. And they tell you when, they don't tell you how, I think, maybe vaguely how, but there are two characters in here. Mateo is one, I can't remember who the other one is, it's been a while since I read it, and they are completely unrelated, but they run into each other randomly in kind of like a meet cute, and so it's a male-male love interest story as well, but it's a very tragic one. And someone has just started mowing outside, so I'm gonna keep going, but I'm sorry if you can hear that in the background. So I really liked this book. I finished it in a day. I got it from a publisher just very randomly. I didn't expect to receive it at all. I think I finished it at 2 a.m. and I was just crying my eyes out. So it's a book that sticks in my memory because it gave me such an emotional response to it as well. I have a few more, so only 3. The next one is kind of a combination of 2 books, and that is Daisy Jones and the Six and also Evelyn Hugo, and they are both by Taylor Jenkins Reid. She tends to write contemporary books that are either young adult or adult, and so Evelyn Hugo is an adult one, but Daisy Jones is a young adult one. So Daisy Jones is about this band. Obviously they're fictional, but the way that she wrote both of her books that I have read, they felt like real people by the end, and I just wanted to go and Google their life history and their music, and I couldn't because obviously they don't exist. So I listened to the audiobooks for both, and they were both brilliantly performed. Daisy Jones and the Six is about a band, and it shows how they got together and how drugs became a real problem for them, and just the way they had infighting and how they resolved different things and how they didn't. And I like how it developed all of those characters. If I hadn't been listening to the audiobook, I think I would have mixed up the characters, but it had a different voice actor for each character. So it had about 6 of them, and that helped me differentiate between all of them. I gave it a 4 stars out of 5. I really enjoyed that. And I also gave Evelyn Hugo a 4 out of 5 stars as well. And this is about a woman who is a celebrity. She's very old now, but she was quite big in the 80s and 90s. I think mostly the 80s. And so she gets a reporter to come and tell her life story. She's kind of been a recluse so far. So this interview is going to make and define this journalist's career. And so this journalist is going back into Evelyn Hugo's past. And I didn't think that I would be interested in it, but it talks about all of the 7 husbands that Evelyn Hugo had and why she had those husbands and how they were linked to her image and her identity and her publicity at the time. And I really loved that depth of character. When I got to the end of the book, I was like, I both like and dislike her as a character, and it felt like a real person again, like I said. So it was a great book. I really enjoyed it. I did not expect to, because it is not like anything I thought that I would like whatsoever. So I'm really happy that I picked it up, and I think Taylor Jenkins Reid is an author for me that is worth going back and revisiting, because clearly she writes contemporary books that I'm probably going to enjoy. And now we come to It by Stephen King. I have read basically no Stephen King, and I finished the audiobook for It, which I feel very accomplished in doing. I gave it a 4 stars at the time, and I have a very old reading wrap up where I talk about it. So I will link that, but it is old, so just beware. I think I liked it, but there are parts that I really didn't like. Obviously the ending, if you're familiar with It. I imagine also that people are aware of what it's about because it's such an iconic series. It's about kids and there's a monster. They all try and fight the monster. It's a lot more depth, obviously, than that, and I like the lore that is introduced in the book. But even though the second or third quarter of the book felt like it didn't need to be there because it was a very long-winded story, I feel like it didn't need to be that long. I still enjoyed the book for what it was. It made me very conflicted about things because it was inciting a lot of reactions in me, but not all of them were pure enjoyment, if that makes sense. And I think the way that Stephen King navigated that was very clever. So that's why it's on this list. I don't know if I can say enjoyed the same way I couldn't really say I enjoyed A Little Life, but it definitely incited a reaction, so that's why it's here. And then lastly is a book that is probably very unexpected, but I read this with my mum, and that is why I liked it, because I could discuss it at the same time, and that is Memoirs of a Geisha. This is a book that is about a young woman in Japan, and she's born with blue eyes, and she's quite iconic for that reason. And so she ends up becoming obviously a geisha. These are her memoirs, but they're recorded by a guy I think named Arthur Golden from memory. And so he's gone and written her story and then published it after I think she's passed away. So it's a book that I enjoyed because I could discuss it with my mum at the time. It was very different from what I usually read because I think I was quite young actually when I read it too. I was under 18. I think I was about 15 or 16. So it was reading that was again above my head, and I think that's why I found a lot of merit in discussing it at the time. And I really liked her voice and her story because she recorded her voice telling Arthur Golden her different life moments and memories. And so it really had her and captured her voice in the narrative. And that's what I really liked about it. So I think I gave that a 4 stars. I would like rereading it now to see if I feel any different, but this is my list of books that I didn't think I would enjoy and surprisingly did. Some of them obviously were a bit conflicting, but for the most part I did enjoy these. If you have any that you'd like to suggest to me down below, please let me know, but otherwise I'll chat to you in the comments. I'll see you in my next video and thank you so much for watching. Bye.